Hello, my name is Tara, and today I will be showing you exercises I would give to a rugby athlete. For a rugby athlete, it is important to give them exercises that focus on the transverse plane of motion, upper body, lower body, and core to enhance their performance. Before we begin the workout, it's important to warm up, getting your muscles loose and ready for the workout. For the warm-up, we're going to start with a 5 to 10 minute run on a treadmill. Then we're going to move on to some flexibility exercises, starting with the self-myofascial exercises. Using a foam roller, roll out your calves, separating the muscle into two sections, getting any tightness or knots you may have out. You can roll out on each calf for about 30 seconds. Next, we're going to roll out the quads, rolling out one leg at a time, or you can roll out both. Lastly, using the roller again, roll out the lats, which is important for rugby players because they are throwing the ball backwards and pushing their opponents out of the way, so it's important to get out any tightness you may have in your lats. Moving on to the next flexibility stretches, called dynamic stretches. First, we're going to start with the B-skips. Drive your knee upward. Instead of snapping your leg back down like you would do in an A-skip, extend your leg and bring it back down, striking the ground below with the forefoot and kicking back until it's aligned with the hip. The next dynamic stretch we're going to be doing is the karaoke. For this exercise, cross your right foot over and in front of your left foot with your arms out to the sides. Then step open and out to the side with your left foot. Continue this movement for the opposite leg. The next flexibility exercise is active isolated stretches. For the active isolated stretches, I will be stretching out my calves. Sitting down, legs out in front, wrap the rope around the top of your foot close to the toes. Using the rope, pull your toes, dorsiflexing your ankles, feeling the stretch in the calves. The idea of active isolated stretching is to hold a stretch for about 5 to 7 seconds, then relaxing, and then repeating the movement again. The next active isolated stretching we will be working is the hip abductor. Lie on your back and place the rope where it was while stretching the calf. Bring your leg out, feeling the stretch in your hip or groin area. Again, holding the stretch for about 5 to 7 seconds, then switching to the next leg. For the last of the flexibility exercises, we have static stretches. For static stretches, we're going to start with knee pulls. Lie supine on the floor, legs straight out, and bringing one knee up, holding that stretch again for about 10 seconds, then switching to the next leg. For the next static stretch, we're going to be working the quad. For this stretch, stand up straight, grab one leg, and hold your ankle, stretching the quad for 5 to 10 seconds, then switching to the next leg. Now for core exercises. My first core exercise is the plank pulls. The plank pulls is an anti-rotation exercise that works in the transverse plane of motion, which is perfect for a rugby player since they're constantly twisting their torsos, throwing the ball backwards. In this exercise, it's important to try not to move your core even as you pull the object from under you. Engaging your core, squeezing the glutes as the back works to pull the weight across from under you. Make sure to keep your hands under your shoulders and your knees wider apart to give you more stability. To make this exercise harder, you can add a small weight to your back, making sure you're keeping your back nice and straight, and giving you more pressure fighting the urge to want to sag your glutes or hips. The regression of this exercise would be to do the plank position, but on your knees, decreasing pressure on the arms. The next core exercise I have is a flexion exercise called the bicycle crunches. This exercise works in a transverse plane of motion. This works on the core, making sure you keep your core tight. In this exercise, your legs should be up in the air and your shoulders should be lifted off the ground, keeping your lower back on the ground. Then, using a medicine ball to make figure eights around your legs. To make this exercise harder, use a resistance band to go around your ankles. This way, it keeps your legs from moving all over the place, giving it a little bit more of a resistance. Making sure to focus on keeping your core tight. If you can't perform this exercise, the regression would be to work on one leg, putting that leg down and then working on the next one, taking turns with your legs. Now for the lower body. My first lower body exercise is the in-place lunge. This is a knee-dominant unilateral exercise that works in the sagittal plane of motion. This targets the quad and the hamstrings. The front leg should be 70%, while the back leg 30%. Switching legs. The progression of this exercise is to use kettlebells, making it harder weight on one leg. The regression of this exercise would be to use a TRX to pull you up if you cannot get up yourself. The next lower body exercise is the glute bridge. The glute bridge is a hip-dominant bilateral exercise that works in the sagittal plane of motion. This exercise works the glutes as well as the quads, also the core, making sure you keep your core tight. Lying supine on the floor with your knees bent, use your hips to lift off the ground, then come back down. The progression of this exercise would be to elevate your feet, making the height increased. Also, adding weight. The regression of this exercise is to stand up, doing a hip thrust. This way, it's easier so they are not laying down or using a weight. Lastly, for the upper body. My first upper body exercise is the prone position lateral pull. This is a pull horizontal exercise that works in the sagittal plane of motion. This targets the shoulders and the back. The progression of this exercise would be to pull your arms upward instead of laterally. The regression of this exercise would be to use no weight. My next upper body exercise is the row. The row is a pull vertical exercise that works in the sagittal plane of motion. This exercise works mainly on your middle back, but also works your latissimus and the muscles in your arms. The progression of this exercise would be to use a resistance band, making it a harder pull. The regression would be to come in through the band, making it closer, decreasing the length, making it an easier pull. In the end, all these exercises work to enhance the performance of the rugby athlete.